Very good evening to all of you. Uh, we will be continuing from mergers and acquisitions from the last session. As you can remember, we discussed a couple of things in the last session on mergers and acquisitions. We call M&A. Starting with, we discuss what is a merger means, what is an acquisition, the difference between these two. There's a distinct difference we learn where we said mergers. We will have a new entity coming into the picture after a merger, where in an acquisition, there won't be a new entity. Instead of, there will be the same entity will continue when another company, the existing, the other company will be disappear. So we learn the difference between acquisition and merge. And so I will move on. We learn different types of vertical mergers, horizontal mergers, and conglomerate mergers. We said that a vertical merger is either a forward or a backward integration connection. A horizontal merger is an expansion in a particular business line, same line of business, but another competitor. A conglomerate merger where there's no connection between the other firm, but it's just to minimize the risk of the organization, the firms go for a conglomerate merger. And then we discuss one of the main areas of mergers and acquisitions, why a firm needs to go for a merger or an acquisition. And there we discuss many factors in detail, what makes a firm to go for a merger and acquisition. And I said a firm to, and this area is highly popular in the business world. So one of the main drivers for a merger and acquisition is starting with the economies of scale. When a company, when two companies join with each other, it will help to save so much of cost involved. In other words, it saves a lot of overheads. As a result, both the companies will earn synergy benefits. So that's one of the main reason is the synergy. The saving of cost will link to synergy. Synergy can be not only in terms of cash, it can be in terms of resources, the expertise, and also it can be some precious resources that they used to have in a particular organization. Sometimes it can be cash. Some organizations are cash rich. So when they take over a cash rich company, always that they will benefit being a more liquid firm. Some organizations driven by minimize the competition. So when you have two players in the market and when one player take over another and become a monopoly, it will give a lot of benefits for the organizations in terms of market competitiveness. So you can have you will be the price maker. As a result, you will be able to get supernormal profits. Sometimes to eliminate the competition. So on the same time, by eliminating the competition, you can have huge demand for your product and expand your operation. Sometimes certain unique resources like patents, copyrights also will lead to a reason for a merger and acquisition. So that also one of the reasons a firm to take over another firm. And there are so many other factors like taxes, tax benefits. We discuss when two companies are loss making. Sometimes when you take over another firm, you can carry forward that losses and minimize the taxable profit and save tax amount that you pay to the government. So like that, there were so many reasons for why a firm will merge or acquire another firm. Moving on, we learn the process when it comes to M&A. There are mainly 4 steps we discuss. We call this process of M&A, starting with first one to identify the target. and then you have to value the company. Then we need to think about how are we going to acquire, the mode of acquisition and mode of payment. So identifying the target we discuss, first of all, in order to take over or and acquire a firm, you need to be very clear of which company that you need to take over, why you need to take over, what is the reason behind, and then you need to have a proper valuation. So when it comes to valuation, this is something that we discussed in the previous topic, how to do the business valuation, and all of you now in the process of giving the right value to a firm. So once you do that, we need to understand what kind of a mode that we need to acquire this organization, and finally, what are the methods of making this payment. We discussed there are mainly three methods, starting with through cash, which is much more which is much more popular system, and also through a share exchange, or uh, some organizations through different source of like preferred stocks and other debt arrangements also there, and also it's a combination of shares and cash. So these are some of the main payment modes. And also we discuss, if it is through cash, one of the main advantage is if A is going to take over B, if A is going to take over B through cash, the acquirer shareholders retain the control of the firm. So if A is going to take over B through cash, there won't be an impact to the the controlling interest of A, because we just pay the cash and take over. The deal is finished from there. We are not sharing any ownership to the B shareholders, and greater chance of early success due to simplicity. So we know exactly how much we are going to pay to B. It's very clear and simplified. So we know whether we overpaid or underpaid, because we know exact amount that we are going to pay. But on the other hand, we have one of the disadvantages. It's a huge amount of cash outflow, especially when you're going to take over a firm. The value would be very high, and when the value is very high, it will be sometimes it's a risk for A, because they may have working capital issues when they take over another firm. Moving on, a cash as a mean of payment to the other firm, the company B. Even for the company B, exactly they know how much we are going to receive. They are going to receive on the same time the amount of, it will be spread their investment. On the same time, if they receive a lot of cash, they will be compelled to pay capital gain tax to the government, which is one of the disadvantage of the cash method. So then we discuss about the other mode, which is the share, the most again highly used system, the payment through shares. So if you pay through shares, if A is again going to take over B through shares, the advantage is you don't need to pay a single rupee to B, because you are issuing shares instead of that. So you issue shares instead of that. But the disadvantage of it will dilute the existing shareholder control. Because if you have 100,000 shares now, and if you issue another 20,000 shares to take over another firm, what will happen is you are giving your ownership to outsiders. The moment you give your ownership to the outsiders, you take a risk, because these are not maybe not loyal to your business. So therefore, it may be a threat sometimes to your control. But on the other hand, there's something called price earning ratio game can be played, which will be discussing in detail through a calculation. And this tool is really used to understand the expected market value of the firm. So we call this bootstrapping method, can be used as an advantage when you issue shares to B. And also as disadvantages, it will be greater risk of overpaying. even though you don't pay cash when you are issuing shares, sometimes you may pay more value worth of shares to B, which will be a disadvantage at the end. And also, if you are not a quoted public company, this may be a difficult task. Why? When you are issuing shares, you don't know how much that your share is worth, because you are not a quoted firm. Quoted means you are not listed in the stock exchange. If you are not listed in the stock exchange, you don't have a readily available market price for your share. When you don't have a market price, and when you are trying to exchange something, if you don't know the price, it's always a disadvantage, because this is, you exchange what you think. So when you are thinking something and doing an exchange, it may be sometimes a disadvantage to you. Whereas in cash, it's very clear. It's simply know that how much you are going to pay. So therefore, you are not going to be paying more over the amount that you were supposed to pay. So these are some of the main advantages and disadvantages for the company B, the target company, if you done exchange through shares. And also on the shares for the target company, the advantage is you don't need to capital gain tax, because you are not going to get any money. But on the other hand, you have the luxury of gaining the controlling interest of the main company, which you will be more happy with. At the same time, the values are uncertain, so therefore we may have to spread your investment without a higher transaction cost. So these are some of the main disadvantages of the shares payment to the target shareholders. Right. So let's have a look at this situation. There are two companies, X and Y. We discussed a little bit of area in the last session, so we'll be continuing from there. There are currently $1 million earnings for both the firms, and the number of shares that they issued by X and Y company are same. The earnings per share is $0.1 for X and $0.1 for Y, and the price earning ratio is given as 20 and 10. So just to refresh, price earning share, all of you know, the market price divided by the earnings per share of the firm. So in X it's 20, but in Y it's only 10. And the share prices are given, that is 2 and 1. So if you just calculate this share price is 2 and the earnings per share is 0.1, right? And so price divided by earnings, so price is 2, earnings is 0.1, anyway you will get the 20. So that's how the price earning ratio is given. Fine. So just think about the two options. If X is going to take over Y, if X decided to pay by cash to take over Y, how much of money X has to pay to Y? If X is going to take over Y through a cash payment, through a cash mode, how much of money that X has to pay? Yes, we can easily find this, because we know the share of one share of Y, and we know the total amount of shares that Y is holding. So I need a quick answer for this. If X is going to take over Y through cash, we have to pay, yes, we got an answer of 10 million. Thank you. Why? $10 million. Why? As one share of Y is $1. They have 10 million shares, so the value of Y is 10 million. So if X is going to take over Y, very simply you want to pay 10 million and take over the firm. No share exchanges. Very straightforward, easy. But the disadvantages for Y is, now they got 10 million cash. The moment they got 10 million cash, they are subject to capital gain taxes. So a huge amount has to pay back to the government for the shareholders of Y. On the other hand, for the X, they did not dilute any of their shares. Their share ownership is still remain same, but they just pay the money and take over Y. So there are advantages from both the ends. Right, so let's assume if you buy company Y through shares, if X decided, okay, I'm not going to pay cash because we don't have money at the moment, but we really like to take the company Y. If that's the case, how much I should pay or how much of shares that I should issue to take over Y? It's a share exchange. Let's say it's a share exchange. How much of Y? We know the value is worth 10 million. So the value of Y is 10 million. So in order to take 10 million, how much of shares that the X has to issue additionally for the firm? Yeah, so we have 5 million because 10 million is the total value of the firm, where we have share price of X is $2, right? So therefore, if you divide by 2, you will get 5 million of X shares. 5 million of X shares has to be issued in order to take over Y, right? Now, let's assume, and also we know when they issue 5 million shares, now there are no more X. You have a new firm called now you have taken over Y, and now we have X only because Y is already inside X now, right? Now I want you to know how much of what is the total number of shares of the new firm. This is new X. Okay, after absorbing Y, we have a new firm. We have already 10 million shares, and the X has issued another 5 million. What is the total new shares? You have 15 million shares in X, right? Now, why we need to know? We need to know the new earnings per share after this acquisition. We want to know the new earnings per share after this acquisition. Okay, so what is the total earnings? Now, X has 1 million earnings, Y has 1 million earnings. Now, when they combine, when they took over, how much of total earnings the new firm is going to get? They are going to be 2 million earnings. 2 million earnings. And the total number of new shares is 15 million. The total shares is 15 million. If that is the case, what is the new earnings per share of this firm? What is the new earnings per share of this firm? Yeah, 15 million. Sorry, we have total number of earnings of 2 million divided by 15 million shares. So how much is the earnings per share? Yeah, 0.13 dollars per share. Are we clear? Yes, we got 0.13 as the earnings per share. Right. Now, what is this price earning ratio means? What they say is, if X is going to take over Y, there's a reason why X is going to take over Y. The main reason, they believe that Y is not performing at the moment. If X can take over Y, they believe that the Y can be improved. Or at the moment, why they are not operating well, their management decisions are wrong, they don't have a proper coordination, and they are weak in their marketing, or weak in their financing management, or some weakness is there. So X is believing that if they took over Y, you can turn around and get a better profit. So this earnings ratio game means, what the X believe is, if X take over Y, they can use the same PE ratio. They can use the same PE ratio as what they used to have in the future as well, for the new company as well. Now this is before absorbing. So you had 20. So what they believe is they can continue that in the future as well. So if they continue the PE as 20, initially it was X. Now what they believe is for the new company also. Then what would be the expected share price? Expected share price means if X took over Y, what would be the new share price of the firm? It's going to be 2.6, exactly 67. Just see whether all of you get that answer. How do we arrive that? We got the earnings per share of the two firms. We got the total earnings per share then. And then we calculate the price earning ratio. We take the firm XPE ratio as the new PE and then calculate the expected price. Now, I want you to look at this number and think, because of this thing, when company X and Y join together, you see a synergy benefit. Now I want you to calculate what is the synergy benefit that they got because of this merger. By looking at the value, I want you to think about what is the additional, the synergy, or what you know the synergy when 1 plus 1 equals 3. What is this additional contribution that this firm get because they went for this particular acquisition? Think about it. Yes. In your opinion, what is the synergy benefit over this transaction? The total synergy effect. How do we do that? Right. So in order to understand that, we need to know what is the new value of this firm. Now you know what is the expected value of a one share? 2.67. What is the total number of shares now in this firm? We have 15 million. So if 15 million multiplied by 2.67, we can find what is the new value of the firm. Right? So how much is that? 15 into 2.67. So that we can calculate the new value. New firm value 15 into 2.67. Yeah. $30, 40.05. 40.05, right? So when they combine, this is the new value of the firm based on our expected market price. But before that, can you remember? Company X, what is the value? We have $2 per share, 10 million shares. It was only 20 million. And for Y, we have $1 per share, and there are 10 million shares. That's going to be 10 million only. So when you combine it as isolated firms, when you combine it, it's going to be 30 million. But now we are saying 40.05. This is the difference. If they take separately, isolating these firms, we would have got only 30 million from this, having these two firms. Why? But because of you use the earnings ratio game, and we apply this PE ratio of X, and we expected to recover the inefficiencies of Y, we believe the firm will be able to increase to 40.05. So the synergy is the difference between the expected new price and the isolated prices. So that means we are going to get a 10.05 value of synergy from this. Look at from the company X shareholders point. Company X shareholders point. They used to have a share which worth only $2. They used to have a share of $2 each. Now because of this merger, what is the expected price of the share? 2.67. So if you are a shareholder of X, do you like for this merger? You would like for this merger. Why? 2.67. You will get a better return. Your share, which was 2 rupees, now has gone to 2.67 because your expectations has gone due to the new merger. So if you are the shareholder, you will be happy and you will be favoring this merger because you know that the synergy, you also will be part of that synergy. Okay. So this is very important. So also we need to see from the 10.05 how much will be gone to the X shareholders, how much will go to the Y shareholders. We can even classify it and see, and based on that we can see, is it worthwhile X to take over B? Is it worthwhile Y shareholders to taken over by X? So all these decisions can be taken, even though it's a very small calculation. Everything is inside this. It's a very simplified version of an acquisition. So only the numbers and the terms will differ, but the theory and the methodology will be same. Right? So let's move on. So this is basically we are using X strengths. In other words, now if you take an example, some organizations, they believe their strength is marketing. Because of their marketing strength, they take a lot of they attract a lot of customers. But there may be players in the market, they are not aggressively marketing, they are not good at marketing because they don't know the new tactics, they don't have the skill for that. So if X is a firm which has that strengths, and what they believe is if they take over Y, they can use the same strengths, this is where we can use it and get the synergy of the firm. Simple context. Why a firm is going to take over another firm due to the synergy benefit. Right. So let's move on. So this is the calculation which I have shown. So the total earnings, number of shares, earnings per share. So once you calculate the earnings per share, you apply the PE ratio and calculate the expected share price. Right. Okay. So let's move on further. So these are the three methods we discussed: through cash or stocks, or you call this shares, or through debentures or other convertible instruments, or you can have a combination of all three if you want. Sometimes if you don't have all the cash, you can take some amount through cash and the rest of the things through shares or debentures. So right, okay, let's move on to another question. This is a very important question, and a good example of a share exchange. A share exchange. So I want you to really understand this, because this is a very good example for a one firm is taking over another firm through a share exchange. So let's have a look at it. XYZ Limited wants to acquire ABC Limited by exchanging 1.6 shares for every share of ABC Limited. It is anticipated to maintain the existing PE ratio subsequent to the merger also. That is where we discuss about the price game ratio or bootstrap theory. The relevant financial data are as follows. So the two companies' earnings are given, two companies' total number of shares issued are given, and the current share price is given. Okay, and also this is also very important. Exchange. It's a share exchange. It's a mode of payment through shares. Now, what I want you to find is couple of questions. What is the exchange ratio based on market prices? What I want you to find is the exchange ratio based on market prices. What is the pre-merger earnings per share and the PE ratio for each firm? What is the earnings per share of XYZ Limited after the acquisition? So post-acquisition earnings per share. And finally, what is the expected market price per share of the merged firm? What is the expected market price of the share of the merged firm? Okay. So first we'll start with the what is the exchange rate ratio? Sorry, what is the exchange ratio based on the market prices? So let's do that first. Right, let's answer the first one. What is the exchange ratio based on market prices? Anyone got an answer for that? The exchange ratio based on market prices. Now, if you can look at the previous one, it says this is an exchange. There's a share exchange, but it's nothing to do with market. It's just a share exchange where XYZ wants to acquire ABC by exchanging 1.6 shares for every share of ABC. So that's only the number of shares. But the question is not just number of shares, the exchange rate based on market prices. So if we are using market prices, what is the exchange between XYZ and ABC? I want you to think and give me an answer for this. Anyone would like to try for that answer? The exchange rate based on market prices. This is a ratio, not an exact number. What we want is the ratio based on market prices, not a final number. Yeah, we got the right answers. Now, if you take the exchanging 1.6 shares for one ABC share, we have 1.6 for one ABC share. So what is the price of, so if it is market based, we need to go to the prices. So the price of XYZ per share is $35. So 1.6, you need to multiply by $35, and then you can calculate what is the price that we are going to exchange with ABC. And we know the price of ABC. The ABC price is per share is $40. And if you divide by $40, yes, as MSA Perera was given the right answer, the ratio is going to be 1.4. So what do you mean by 1.4? If you exchange XYZ Limited for ABC share for a 1.4 of XYZ Limited share, we are going to, in other words, for a 1 share of ABC Limited, we are going to give 1.4 of XYZ shares. Did you understand that? I'll go back to the question again. What is the exchange rate based on market prices? Exchange rate, the ratio based on market prices. So without the market prices, the exchange is 1.6 shares for a 1 share of ABC. But when we put it to the pricing, one share of XYZ is 35. So 1.6 worth of shares means 1.6 into 35, whatever the value, and then 1 share of ABC is 40. So it will be 1.4. In other words, the market based exchange rate is for a 1 share of ABC, XYZ has to issue 1.4 shares. Are we clear? Fine. So let's move on to the next one. What is the pre-merger earnings per share and the PE ratio for each company, which you can easily calculate. What is the pre-merger earnings per share and the PE? Let's quickly calculate that. Pre-merger EPS. Yes, earnings per share, we have total earnings of 1.5 million and number of shares is 300,000 K. So you have to be careful. First, the denominator is in millions and denominator is in thousands and the numerator in millions. So what is the earnings per share? You get 5 for XYZ and PE gonna be 6. Yeah, so 1.5 divided by 300,000, you get earnings per share is 5. So for ABC, you can calculate 0.5 million divided by 75, you will get 6. Is it 6? Okay, good. And if you see the PE ratio, price earning ratio, so the price is $35, earnings is 1.5 million, but this is a 1 share. So we need to know the total value, right? Total value divide by 1.5. So 300K into 35 divide by 1.5 million, you will get the PE for XYZ. So the total price $35 into 300,000. $300K, yes, divide by earnings. So we'll put it in thousand, in all these millions also in thousands. So it's gonna be yeah, right? So what's the answer? Is it 7? Yeah, so PE of XYZ is going to be 7, and for ABC it should be 75,000 multiplied by $40 per share divided by 450,000 shares. Sorry, 400. Yeah, $450,000. Is it 6.67? Yeah, right. So you got 6.67. Right. So we got the pre-merger earnings per share and the PE of XYZ and ABC. So previously the XYZ Limited used to get $5 per share. For ABC used to get $6 per share. Now let's calculate the new figures. We'll go to the third question. What is the earnings per share of XYZ Limited after the acquisition? Now this is the post acquisition. So XYZ is going to take over ABC. And if XYZ take over ABC, now I want you to calculate the post acquisition earnings per share. This is very important. All this time we calculated separately. Now what would be the combined earnings per share? Like we did in the previous calculation, calculate the total earnings, calculate the total number of shares, and then you can calculate the new earnings per share. So how do we calculate that? What is the total earnings? Total earnings of the combined firm. That's going to be 1.5 million and 0.45 million. So the total earnings of having both the companies, it's going to be 1.95 million. Are we clear? The total earnings. How about the total shares? Now you need to think about correctly. We are not going to issue in terms of cash, we are going to issue shares. And we have been given the exchange as well. So if that's the case, how much would be the total number of new shares of the firm? If I ask how much of shares that the XYZ company has to issue in order to take over ABC, how much of shares XYZ has to issue in order to take the ABC? Yeah, I'm getting different answers. Now that is the most important thing that you need to resolve. The moment you resolve, then your answers will be clear. How much of XYZ Limited has to issue to take over ABC. Now, if you go to this point, exchanging 1.6 shares for every share of ABC. So, at the moment, there are 75,000 shares. For a 1 share of ABC, the XYZ, the company that you are going to take over, has to issue 1.6, which means for 75,000 shares, you need to issue how many shares? As we correctly got 120 shares, 120,000 actually, 120,000 shares. So, in order to take over ABC, XYZ Limited has to issue 120,000. These are not ABC shares. These are XYZ. So they have to issue 120,000 shares in order to compensate the 75,000 shares. So then what would be the new or the total number of shares of XYZ now? It's going to be 420,000, because they had initially 300,000 shares, but now because of the new merger, XYZ has to issue another 120 shares. Why? For each share of ABC, they need to issue 1.6 share of XYZ. So therefore, totally, they need to issue 120,000 shares. So therefore, overall number of shares is going to be 420,000 K. 420,000 shares. Fine. Okay, now we have the total earnings, total number of shares. So can't we quickly calculate the post acquisition earnings per share? Yes, 1.95 million divided by 420,000 shares. So therefore, a one share is going to be 4.64 dollars. So $4.64 per share. Earnings is going to be $4.64 per share. Okay, now we move on to the next question. So we have so far answered first three: the exchange ratio based on market prices, pre-merger earnings per share, and the PE ratios of both the firms, and the post-acquisition earnings per share of the firm. Finally, what is the expected market price per share of the merged company? Now that is very important. This is again, we have done similar thing in just a while ago. We did another question. What is the expected market price per share of the merged company? So based on this information, let's calculate the expected market price of the new firm. Now this is where you need to apply the second point what they have mentioned in this question. It is anticipated to maintain the existing PE ratio subsequent to the merger also. What is the existing PE ratio of XYZ? We already calculated, that was 7. So what they say is we are following the same PE ratio for the merged entity as well. So therefore, based on that, what would be the expected market price? So we got the answer 4.64 is the so for this expected market price we are using the PE ratio expected market price is X, which we are going to calculate. The expected earnings per share is otherwise, in other words, the post acquisition earnings per share that we just arrived. So they say to use the same PE anticipated with the merger. The PE was, we already calculated, that was 7 for XYZ. So we use the same PE for this calculation. On the same time, we calculate the earnings per share, the post merger earnings per share just a while ago, that's just $4.64. So now we apply $4.64 and the expected PE, anticipated PE as 7. What would be the new market based value? 7 multiplied by 4.64. How much is that? $32.48 is going to be the expected market price per share. 32.48. So that is the expected market price per share of the merged entity. So right now what we did was a merger through shares. Okay, let's quickly do this question as well. Now this is a firm that you have. Okay, if you have any questions of the previous question, please throw to me, I can answer. We'll continue with another question. There are two companies. Company A has 200 million shares with a current market value of $4 per share. Company B has 90 million shares with a current market value of 2 rupees per share. The new term is A makes an offer of 3 new shares for every 5 currently held in B. A has worked out that the present value of all the synergy will be 40 million. The question is, advise the shareholders of Company B whether they should accept this offer. So I want you to think for a minute and then answer. So they need an advice from you. Whether the shareholders of Company B we should accept this offer. So we are Company B.
Yes, how do you advise this situation? So we'll take a quick break until after the break we will discuss this question.
Do you have another assignment this week? Another assignment in the same subject? No, not in this subject. This month. Ah, okay. So now you have only my one. Extension. But what about the other assignments? Do you have any other assignment close by? Project. When was that submitted? How much? When was it? End of this month. I can extend it, that's not a problem, but I need to know the date if it is the case. Do you think by extending a 1 week will help it? Because now if the project is on, they say 30th, is it 30th? 31st? Ah, okay. So that's okay, I can extend, it's not a problem. Because anyway, we'll be finalizing everything towards the end, no? I can extend till probably then 29th of this month. Ah, okay, okay, sorry. 30th is your deadline for the other one, no? Right, right. So 4th of February then? It will be holiday now anyway. 5th you may have classes, no? 4th is a holiday for you. 4th is a holiday, no? Then I can put as 4th, no? The people can, on the national holiday, they can finish this, no? Yeah, they can work. Yeah, true, true. That's okay, I can do it. 4th of February, no? I'll make a notice.